Hey, what is going on, guys? We are back here to talk about Rooster Fighter Episode 6 with the one and only great,
Cameron Thomas funny clips.
the man, the myth, the legend himself. How'd you feel about that pretty crazy episode, especially with that ending?
What can I say? It was just an amazing episode. This chapter from when I first read it, this is where I locked in to the series where I really felt like, okay, this is a series of a manga that I actually feel like I want to follow while the anime keeps going on and probably gets on hiatus for a little bit and just read the manga while I'm doing it. But it's really cool of how it's been 6 episodes already, and yet Kenji's development is like fully adapted now. Like, this is where things get really serious now that we have all the development out of the way. We have a fully fleshed character with all of our characters are fully fleshed, and now we can get towards the second phase of the series. And so far, we are still in the second phase, it looks like, in the manga. So don't expect us to get to the third phase anytime soon. But I am really glad that we are. Oh, I just can't believe we're finally in the second phase already. And yet the manga hasn't finished the second phase.
Yeah, it seems like everyone at this point is kind of like friends and they're starting to heavily focus on some big villains.
Yeah, this is where the series starts becoming more serious. Like, the beginning, it was kind of getting started up and everything, and you just needed to show off these characters. But how they did it is that they wanted to do it in a comedic way. That way, you were invested throughout all this turmoil and everything. Because I think that does it best because when you think of most anime, like Isekai, for example, when they do the character development and try to flesh out the characters, it gets too much into it and less on like the story, and then we have to like pause the whole story just so we can understand these characters. And that's really what slows a whole anime down for me is when they take the characters and then they're uninteresting at first, and then you're trying to make them seem to show your vision, but you really can't do that because you didn't fully flesh out these characters to begin with. And I feel like this creator actually came up with a great idea of letting these characters be have a lot of flaws, and eventually those flaws begin to wipe away. And I really like how he does that because we rarely see anime where we see the character with flaws and then eventually those flaws go away. Like, I can't I can't mention any anime that has done that in like the 2020s, to be honest with you. Even some of the Toonami anime, they even don't do that in those either. And it's it's one of those things where like I feel like that makes it where the character gets to you closer than if it was where it was unfleshed out and then it's still unfleshed out, and then eventually you just got boring characters, and then eventually they don't get good until like the very end of the story, or if not at all.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Kind of like a lack of purpose, just kind of bland characters. Like Lazarus, they just threw us into these characters. I forgot the one that was like kind of like the comedy guy. He was the only one that they tried to flesh out. Here, I feel like Toonami's kind of learning. It's not only the material. I think they're getting better with what they're doing.
I really agree with you on that one because like Lazarus had like the biggest problems with where we focus too much on Axel, the main character, and all these other characters barely got any screen time. And when they were on screen, it was the most boring, mind boggling thing that you were like, I just want to turn this off right now. And I feel like the only fleshed out character in that was like the kid that was like 12 years old in middle school, and that was a very interesting character and everything, but that was it. The rest of the characters, they didn't really feel all that much fleshed out. Unlike this series where it's actually fleshed out and it feels like the creator gave the time it needed. And I really feel like what helps this, again, it's just how the manga is created, of how he makes like a volume a year and literally brainstorms most of the time and takes his time with the series instead of doing like what Toriyama or Oda had to do, where they had to do this weekly, and sometimes the story wouldn't even be fleshed out all that much. I know One Piece fans will say the story is always fleshed out, but there are moments in that series where it isn't. And that's mostly because it was just a weekly manga series, is what it is.
Yeah, well, it was really slow pace, so he could really take time to think things through whenever he got to it. A lot of flashbacks to kind of
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, I finally found my idea," and then he would hit it, and it would hit really hard whenever he would do so.
Not only that, just some of these manga series, and it's mostly Shonen Jump that does this, because I've heard so many things that Shonen Jump is like considered like the worst place to work at, because they're very strict, because they're like, you need to get your chapter out that week. And if you don't, your series will likely get canceled because they don't allow late dues, is what it is.
Yeah,
And I've also heard this has also caused some manga creators to, because you're drawing so much that it hurts your hand and everything. So, what's the best thing you can do? You got to put it on hiatus, and sometimes that hiatus doesn't end until like a year or 2 years. Like, who knows when Hunter x Hunter is going to end
no,
because of all the hiatuses? Like,
yeah,
people are actually thinking that series is never going to end due to the creator right now. And
yeah,
Sailor Moon was looking like it wasn't going to end, but it got cut short because Shonen Jump just didn't feel the popularity was getting as big as what it used to be. But as for Rooster Fighter, I feel like how this is all planned out and everything, it just works best.
yeah. Taking your time, being patient. Even these series, they take time with it, and it just comes out very perfectly. Episode to episode, it's really working out. It's better than it being one of those things that is going to be coming on every weekday. You know what I mean? Like once a week forever, where it just infinitely just keeps going on and it just drags eventually. They're able to keep so much content from the manga. I'm not reader and a watcher, I'm mostly a watcher because I'm just brain dead, that's material that I can kind of digest a little better. It's the way I kind of do it. But yeah, a lot of it's just a modern day thing is what I'm trying to say.
I will say, I did text, message you about when we saw like the premiere of this episode. I literally told you there's that manga panel that was missing, where it was about the little girl, and it was from the past episode where she really wanted to be a doctor, and she gives her speech of how she is inspired by them and she wants to become a doctor and save lives just like they did. Well, I actually think that was because of the Dawn to Dawn episode again, because when I watched the whole night is what it was. I skipped Tokyo Avengers and Blue Lock because I've never seen those series and I'm not caught up.
Tokyo
But
Revengers is sick.
yeah, I really am probably gonna catch up on those and watch the main episodes too long. But anyway, what it was is that I went straight into I was like, I always watch like the episode again, make sure I didn't miss anything, or you know, they could have it unedited this time. You never know,
Yeah.
because that's what they did with Ninja Kamui. Because like I know sometimes that series would have it censored at the beginning, uh, probably mostly due to photosensitivity for One Piece or Dragon Ball or something like that,
Yeah.
because they were airing Dragon Ball Z Kai around that time. And then what happened was is that when it went to uh, that series, it was they actually added kept the scene that they had to cut out. So my guess they have two versions of these episodes where if they need to cut down like 10 seconds for a photosensitivity sign, they have it, and then they can play the rest of the full episode later than that. And they did adapt that part. So I was glad about that, but I was like, what an odd scene to cut out because it feels like a full because when I saw that part, it was like, okay, that shows that this is the end of that character. We're not going to see her again. This is the end of her story
The
in the
good ending.
manga.
The good ending.
Exactly. It gives a good ending to her story. And when you take away that, it makes it seem like, oh, is she going to try to follow the chickens or what? Like, it's
Yeah.
like they totally forgot about it. It's like, for instance, if,
Mhm.
and I would just be so mad if this actually happened, like if all of a sudden, uh, there's a plot hole in an anime, like One Piece, for example, and we're at Marineford and they totally forget that there are guards and transponder snails watching Luffy and he just busts out very quickly out of Impel Down just to get to Ace. Like, and that's just feeling rushed. And I felt like that was just something that was just cut out or something. And I was like, that's a weird. I understand the Pyoko thing of the Chicken Little thing because, you know, I mean, sure, it's a big part of the manga,
Yeah.
but they did it in a way where it actually fits up really good. And I would like to talk about that for a bit because how they did that is that they didn't even let him say a thing. They just let him be silent, which I was like, oh, well, which he was silent for a bit, but then he said, Chicken Little, I'm so sorry. And he was giving his apology. And I was like, that is so weird. They kept him silent for most of the time and then uh, just skipped that whole part. But it is reasonable, but I also feel kind of like the manga kind of did it better anyway because
Yeah. They're scared. Viz is very scared of Disney. It's
yeah.
hard.
And but I will say, if anything, it's not the worst thing in the world. It would be worse if it was something like they cut out a fight scene or cut out a couple of chapters or something like that. Like some of these anime do. Like I know some anime that people get really mad when they skip an arc and they're like, oh, we don't want to do that arc because it doesn't come relevant till later in the next season.
Yeah.
And that's when we're going to adapt it. And then you're like, well, then you're doing it out of order and it's not going to make sense for the manga reader.
Facts.
but, but I actually really do like how they tried their best. And I will say they executed it very well because I could generally see that becoming a really big issue if they really messed it up completely.
Yeah. I agree with you. I was thinking what was worse than that? They killed off my boy Mario like it was nothing. Bro was a hero. He was even he said farewell to Keiji and the others, and just like that, he gets killed by some random demon that all we know is gotta be like a top tier demon boss in the endgame.
Yeah, she is actually a big part of phase two. And from my understanding, they do defeat her because, like, they don't keep main villains throughout this whole story because they're trying to defeat all these evil demons.
Yeah,
And that's the whole point of this series because there's no like real main demon except for the white demon. If they did like that, then it would just become too cluttered as a series as a whole, and that's just not what the series is.
definitely.
But it's kind of like more like villain of the week type stuff with like how comics do with like Spider-Man villains and stuff like that. They'll just throw away villains for villain of the week, and that will be the whole comic issue. And it's just something interesting of how this actually ends up doing that when you always see animes trying to do an arc, but this really does not have an arc guide at all. This is just an entire one arc altogether, believe it or not. And it's just like phase one, phase two, but he doesn't put it in phases. I just did that as a fan because it pretty much shows the phases of the series. But anyway, but when I actually saw that in the chapters, I was like, oh, is he dead or is he alive? Because I know these demons, they're pretty hard to beat. And pretty much all we've seen that can kill these demons is literally the special move that Kenji has, the Come Come Pum Pow. I don't know if I said that right or not. I probably slandered it badly.
Taka.
but but I will say they actually did that scene very well because that is actually how a manga chapter ends in the manga. So, and if I'm not mistaken, that's actually how one of the volumes end. So, like, imagine being the dude that had to wait the next year to get the next volume to see what happened to Mario.
Yeah,
Like,
10 years just for him to get killed off in 5 seconds.
and not only that, to manga fans, Mario is like the fan favorite of the side characters, is what it is. So, like, uh, they did their job of doing Mario justice to those manga fans that really like him. Because I even see some Rooster Fighter fans even say Mario's their favorite character, and to that, I think is just insane to say a side character is your favorite character because usually you see these anime where it's always like, someone part of the crew. It's never this side character that barely shows up in the story. But
It's good sense.
it it's actually really good of how they manage these side characters to have so much personality. And that's what I think this manga writer just does best is just character writing as a whole. And that's really what I really enjoy with an anime or any kind of series in general is that I just want to have good characters to follow through the entire story. Because if you don't have good characters, how you expect your viewers to be engaged in the story? And on top of that, how you expect them to continue consume the media? And it's all with, and not only that, characters can become very merchandisable if done right. So it can also come with another profit with that. That's why characters should always be your number one progress when coming up with a story. And when I really saw this, how they did this tragic death of Mario, how they kept on thinking, oh, is he dead or is he not dead? It's actually this creator just really loves to mess with his viewers' minds. And that's what he does most with this Mario character as like phase two happens. He uh I won't. It's hard to tell you how to do things because it it's very suspenseful and very ironic where you just don't expect it at all. It's kind of like how you know how you've seen past episodes where you're like, oh, I was not expecting that in the episode. He does that so much in this series, and it's like one of the biggest ones. And I will say that he, it is played out like, is he dead or is he not dead? And that's what the viewer watching or reading has to figure out with Kenji and the gang because when they hear about Mario and everything later on, that's when it's going to hit home for Kenji. And he's like, well, what I do now, he was my best friend, you know? And it just really, and when they do that, when we get to that part, you're really going to see how Kenji really has grown as a character. He has made a bond in a relationship with a person for once that wasn't his sister. And of course, he's done it with Pyoko and Elizabeth. But besides that,
Yeah.
he did it with an actual demon, his royal enemy that he wants to kill so badly.
So it's like he begins to understand there's more than just him to kind of help out there. Also, you can sort of feel like
Mm-hmm.
a hero type of thing. So essentially, everyone begins to care about each other in this episode. Mario finally finds his purpose, and in the end, Mario gets killed off, but we have a new villain that's going to be taking the throne, at least for a little while.
And not only that, if you even like, I know Toonami pretty much has been skipping this part of the intro, probably because of how spoilerish it is. Usually, they're really good at cutting out parts of an intro because of spoilers or something like that, because they know this is probably their only way to get their anime consumed. So why would they want to watch an intro that they can't skip? That probably spoils an art, especially if it's One Piece, you know, because One Piece always spoils everything with their intros.
Most of the
And
time.
yeah, most of the time, mostly in the later arts. But what it really was is that when they saw, oh, I think what happened was that when they saw this part in the intro, because in the intro, they literally show off every villain that they're going to face as like in a whole row is what it is of villains that they're going to
Oh,
face. And she was one of the ones that popped up, and I was like, okay, we're getting close to phase two with this thing, or it's going to end on this part. But even then, I was like, then why is the fourth chicken in the intro anyway? And that's pretty much the only spoilerish thing in the intro if you watch it on cable. But watch it on Hulu or go on a pirate site, you're gonna get spoiled with the actual intro.
yeah.
But it was very interesting to see that they actually wanted to end the episode on a really big cliffhanger of that chapter that I mentioned. And I really think that is very neat.
Yeah, because
But what I also like to say is that they really fleshed out better with like the guy that was like recording them. I know people when they watch this episode and they make their own like reviews, they're probably just gonna forget all about that guy that was recording them the whole time because it's just a very minor part of the episode. But I will tell you that in the manga standpoint, it took a while till we pieced it all together because it was because we were thrown like backstory tidbits left and right here and there. And it really showed that the creator was trying to flesh out this character while really trying to get this whole like threat done and everything because because it's a very long part of the story and he was probably trying to finish this up, so he didn't really flesh out
I think I
the camera
understood.
guys.
Yeah, I understood.
Yeah,
I think I understood like what was going on. So at that moment,
yeah,
he was going to turn into a demon pretty much, and KG saved him before he could do so. That's what I kind of got out of that. Sorry for interrupting that.
yeah. That's totally fine. That's what they did in the manga, but you really had to piece it together chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter,
Yeah,
and that's mostly due because he was trying so hard to get this whole Kenji back, get Elizabeth Piyoko to meet Kenji again. They meet Mario. Because there was so much he had to do, he didn't have enough time to flesh out this character. And I'm glad that he was able to flesh out this character in his anime series because then we really get to figure out overall. And I will say, when I was watching this episode, and I forgot that he was like so weird looking in the manga, but
yeah,
he is so weird looking compared to his co-workers, I will say. Like he's got the Lord Farquaad head, where it's just a huge giant head on a little mini body, and you have these other guys that are just normal anime dudes, like, and I just thought that was like pretty funny of how he had this humongous head, and then these other guys, they were just totally normal, just throwaway characters.
trying to show the man's like tragically like in life. Not only that, but like looks at everything. He's just down in the dumps. He was on the verge of becoming a demon, and in an instant, KG saves him, and everything kind of just works out. It was really great.
I will say they did not do like the visual I was really hoping for with the whole thing because, usually when we see these people's backstory where they're about to become a demon, we usually see like a piece of them starting to be corrupted, and then they're about to start their transformation. There was like this crack in the background is what it was to represent that he was starting to change, is what it was.
Yeah,
And then it wasn't until Elizabeth screams out, "Oh, look out, the dam is about to be destroyed." And then he notices it, and of course the demon doesn't come out of him, and then he falls, and he's like, "I wasted all my life just trying to become famous and everything and show people that I was better than everyone, when really I was the whole reason for my problems." And I will say that line is very powerful when uh, heard than read, in my opinion. So, but I did. Kenji saves them like normal, and everything's pretty much the same. It's just it wasn't visually shown that he was transforming to the demon. You just had to interpret it,
yeah,
which I'm more of a visual person. I like it when it's visualized and everything. And that way, if a viewer who doesn't understand the series, because you never know, there could be someone walking in, you watching this, and they're like, why is this dude just falling and not caring?
yeah,
Well, he he regrets his life choices. What was his life choices? And then you have to explain the whole thing, but you don't really know how to explain it because it ain't visually shown. You have to just say your interpretation of it. And sometimes that's not always the correct answer. But I will say, at the end of the day, they did do a really good job with this episode. Like I said, that this is the start of phase two,
yeah.
and phase two is like the higher states of phase one. Phase one, it was just the starter, just the appetizer, and now we're just going to get to the main meal, the main chicken bucket meal. So yeah,
Get in that mid game is what you call it. We're in the
yeah,
middle.
yeah.
Throw some villains up in it. Um,
Yeah,
you know, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was really awesome, and I like endings like that where it's like, oh man, tell me more about this villain. But I'm sure it's going to be pretty slow at least before we really get to know more about her and what her background is exactly. Um, I was going to ask, what would you rate this episode, and kind of like why?
I definitely would give this one uh obviously a 10 out of 10, most notably for how well they did this episode and how this is like a good stopping point of, you know, you're like, oh, that was really good. Kenji, I'm actually really liking how Kenji changed as a person because because there are those people that actually hate those totally hated people that are like really mean to like your favorite character, and you absolutely hate them. But then eventually when they get their character development, they begin to become very fan favorite characters. But I really do think this is really a good episode for those people that probably didn't really like Kenji at the beginning, but probably like Kenji now way better than they did before.
Yeah, I felt like that's a really good way to put it. I think of it like KG is putting positive impacts in people's lives without even trying at this point. He saved the lawyer, and if you look at the manga, the little girl also got saved by the other roosters, kind of like putting her on a pathway to do something positive to maybe prevent her later on from becoming a demon. So it's really showing that they're becoming heroes, and everyone was also watching them on that TV, and they're like, hey, these are the good guys, and there's good demons out there. So there's a lot of positive things on that end, like good messages, I would say. I rate this episode a 9, just based off of all that. I still think at the end of the day, whenever this series fully finishes, I'm going to come back down a little more, just because, in my opinion, whenever it comes to all these new series and such, is it going to hit as hard as the others, or am I just watching in the moment, rating it way too high type of thing? But it is one of the better Toonami originals we've had in a long, long time. It has so many great things from old to even new that they're trying to do within it. And you kind of see where they started to where they got today. They're trying to get more of that grab of old school finally and doing the modern end. They did some good things. So I'm hoping for whatever their next series is. I know this is like way up in the future, that they're gonna have something that hits harder than Rooster Fighter. Most definitely. They're on a pathway. But for now, I'm gonna rate this episode a 9 in the moment.
Sounds really good.
Got anything to add?
I will say, for the preview for next episode, I will say it's either it's a 50-50 chance if we're gonna get our next chicken, but hopefully it is because he is definitely one of my favorite characters of the series. And I will give you a little background on him. I won't tell you his twist that he has with Kenji, and that because it's like a huge shocker and everything.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to be spoiled by what he actually is, because except that if they're manga readers, but I want to really see, you know especially you. I want to see everyone's real full reaction of what he actually is, because it's mind blowing and everything. But what I will say, he's pretty dumb, but he's the good kind of dumb. He's like the dumb kind of humor that you see in like a really funny character that isn't so bright, but boy, is he very entertaining. And like, there are moments where like Kenji is trying to use his cockadoodle doo, and when he's about to do it, uh, this chicken tries to copy that and cannot copy it. And really fails at it. And he's like, seriously, bro, you're no good at all. Like you're still in my thunder. I now get on. And he's like, hey, dude, I just want to be your friend and everything. Like he's in his way, and then he's like, oh, I told you to get out of my way. I'm in the middle of a battle and everything. Like he doesn't understand how stupid this chicken is. And it really just shows this is like a realistic chicken, because these chickens are usually really stupid.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. But it's like a realistic input of what a real chicken is like. And I just really think that's hilarious. And uh, it's unknown how he's able to see because that the dude has a fro that covers his eyes. So it's also really funny in that way. So like he's just a really goofy looking character, and then on top of that, he acts really goofy too. So
Afro-centric
definitely,
chicken.
yeah, it will probably be a more comedic episode, and then the later half will probably be action packed, probably, or it could just end up being just funny and silly. What I could see them also doing, if we don't get that, there are two chapters before him that is all about Pyoko and her trying to get the team to get along better, is what it is. Because, and they even show this in like the preview where, they have the three fish and Kenji gets the least of it. And he's like, why do I get the smallest one? And then Pyoko's like, don't worry, mister, you can have mine. I'm not all that hungry. And, and it's really cute and everything, and he's like really happy and everything, and he eats her food, and then they're arguing even more, and Pyoko thinks it's her fault that the
Huh.
team is not dynamically healthy in a way, that she actually runs away at one point, and of course gets involved with the demon, and antics pursue.
Once again,
You'll have to figure out the rest of it.
so that's a good episode. So, looking like a pretty big hitter. If not, might be one and another episode before things get to where we get a new character. But either way, you can say that it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I guess with that, I'm going to be doing the closer. We want to know what you guys' thoughts are on Rooster Fighter Episode 6. Hope you guys stay safe. Until next time, peace out, guys.